So today we're going to go through the SUMIFs function in Microsoft Excel. We're going to start with the very basics and then walk through a number of different scenarios. So that way you get a great idea of how to use SUMIFs better in your own projects. So we're going to start with the very basics. In this cell, we're just going to start with equals to start our formula, and then SUMIFs, and then this left opening parentheses. And now you can see our arguments here are sum range, comma, criteria range, comma, criteria, and this ... Basically represents the fact that you can use multiple criteria ranges and criteria. So let's explain what this means. So the sum range is going to be the number that we want to add. So in this case, our sales. And so our sum range is going to be our column of data that those sales live in. And so I can go ahead and select it here. And then I'm going to hit comma to select our next argument, which is our criteria range. So in this case, I have foldable smartphone here that we're looking at. And so I want to sum our sales for where our product is foldable smartphone. And so that is over here in the product column. And so I just want to select this column. And if you notice, I'm selecting the same number of rows. If I select more than what I have selected in the sales column, which you can see ends in row 21, I'm going to wind up with an error. And the same thing if I start above or below. So I'm going to select the same number of rows as I did for the sales column. And then now I'm going to do comma again, and then I can do my criteria, which in this case will be foldable smartphone. So I can do it there, or I can just do double quotes and actually put the text directly in the formula. And so I could even do something like basic phone here, for example, and then there's my total for basic phone. But if you select something different here, you can see it's not tied to what I'm selecting. So the way to address this is we can get rid of this basic phone here, and then we can actually just click on the cell to reference that cell. And so now as we update our selection, you can see that total updates automatically. All right, so if we have more than one condition, so we can have the product selected here, but if we want the product and perhaps the country, then we need to add another criteria. So let's go ahead and do this again, equals SUMIF, open parentheses, and then our sum range here again. And then our first criteria, we'll use our product. And then I can click on this one to match that product. And then let's select our country range. And again, making sure we start at the same row and end at the same row, so we don't have an error there. Comma again, and then I'm going to select this other cell where I have that country selection. So now if I click enter, now we have it both by product as well as by country. So this allows you to select a product and a country and see the specific sales for both of those criteria. All right, and then for our next one, we're going to ultimately wind up with this does not equals USA for the country. But before that, I'm going to demonstrate some quick math things here. So we could do greater than or less than. And so let's go ahead and just see what this looks like. So we're going to open our formula again, pick our sales column, and then I'm actually going to compare to the sales columns. I'm actually going to do it twice. And then let's say anything greater than 20 million. So we're going to do a double quote, that greater than symbol. And then we can either do greater than, or we could do greater than or equals to. So we'll just do greater than. And then I'm going to do 20 million. So 20, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that will be our 20 million. And so that's only going to add up these here. As you can see down here in the sum is the same as what we have here. So that's a quick way to do that. And then you can flip this around and do less than 20 million and see that total there as well. So that's the way you compare to a number. And then what we're going to do here is if you do not want it to equal, say, a certain country, then what we're going to do here is update our criteria range from sales to country. And then we can do a double quotes and does not equal USA, for example. Or we can directly reference that text in this cell, just like that. As that shows the total number of sales apart from the USA. All right, next, let's look at wildcards. So wildcards allows us to match, instead of the entire thing, So in this sales, it matches exactly the smartphone. And so if we do, or foldable smartphone, if we change it to smartphone, it's not including smartphone and foldable smartphone. It's only doing an exact match for smartphone. And so to combine those two, we could use a wildcard. And so we can open this up, SUMIFs, sales, and then we can pick our product. And again, we can either do it in the formula or we can select that cell. Let's go ahead and start with in this formula. And so one thing to note is we have this asterisk here. And so where you place it is important. And so if we just do, for example, let's do smartphone and the wildcard at the end, this is the same as smartphone here. And so because the extra text is the beginning, we need to flip this around and do this at the beginning of our smartphone. And now we have that total. And so if you want to match on either end, you can wrap it in asterisks like that. And you can also do the same thing in a cell. And so we can match it just like that. That's how you would do a wildcard match. And then similar to the USA here, we can actually do a blank and not blank. And so we can do that check here. So let's do SUMIFs sales, where the sales channel is blank. And so what we're going to do in this case is we're just going to do two double quotes next to each other with nothing in between. And so that's going to match to a blank sales channel. And to do a not blank, we're just going to do a not equals like in the USA. So we're going to do this sales again, channel, and then we're going to do those double quotes, but we're going to put a greater than and a less than sign next to each other. And this means does not equal. And so then there we have our sales blank and our sales not blank. And then to do something like a date, so we could do sales for today on this date, assuming today is March 20 or May 20. And so let's go ahead and do that here. Do SUMIFs. And we'll grab our sales here and then grab our date column. And then I'm going to build this in the formula first instead of comparing directly to that cell, because if we do it here, I can't do 5/20/2024 because that winds up with 0. And so what I need to do here is actually a date. So if we open up a date, you can see now we have year, month, day. So then we would do 2024, 5, and 20. And now you can see we have 116 million for that date. And so then if the date is actually in a cell, you can just select that cell directly. You don't have to wrap it in date and close that. And you can see that we got the same amount. All right, so let's look at a slightly more complicated scenario. So we're going to talk about or. So we've already covered and. So if you do basic phone and Germany, this is the same as doing an and. You want to do where product is basic phone and country equals Germany. But in this case, we want to do combo where we're doing basic phone and USA, or smartphone and Germany, or foldable smartphone and UK. And so we're combining each row, but we want to do an or across each one of these here. And so what we're going to end up doing in this is actually multiple SUMIFs. And so we just concatenate them. So we'll do a sales here, and then let's do this basic phone. So we'll do this here, basic phone, and then country equals USA. And so that's our first one. And so then just to do these others two, we could rebuild this from scratch, or we can copy this and then do a plus, and then we'll paste that back in. And then all we need to do is update these references. So we started in row 13. So we can change this to 14 here, and then plus again, and then change this final one to 15. And now you can see we have the same range, but then we're just updating the reference here from basic phone in USA. Next, we're picking smartphone in Germany, and finally, we're picking our last option. So if we hit enter now, we're seeing a total for basic phone and USA, smartphone and Germany, foldable smartphone and UK. All right, so let's look at a different way of doing or. And so this is if we want to use the same column. And so, for example, here we want Germany as a country, but for inside of Germany, we want to return basic phone or smartphone. So this is a different way of doing this rather than doing a plus SUMIFs as we did in here. What we're going to do in this one is SUMIFs. We're going to grab our sales column, our product column, and then what we're going to do is a array. So that's this left curly brace. What we're going to do in here is actually a double quote and put in our first option, basic phone or smartphone, and then a right curly brace to close. And then we can leave it like this just for the moment. And we'll see we have a spill error. So we have these merged. So it's saying you can't spill the range and merge cell. So what this does natively, let's go ahead and pull this out of it just for a second. So this is what it would do normally, is it will return the results for basic phone in this first cell, and then smartphone in the second cell. So what we're going to do to solve this in here, because we actually want the total, not two different cells, is we're just going to wrap this inside a sum function. And so now you can see if we look at the total of this, 165, and that's the total there. So we can go ahead and delete this now. And then we haven't accounted for Germany as the country yet. And so we can just add that at the end of our sum function here, our SUMIFs function. And we're going to grab that country and then do Germany. And then now we can close that out. And so there is basic phone or smartphone in Germany with our total there. All right, so to wrap this up, we're going to look at one more function here, and it's using named ranges for SUMIFs. And so we're going to have to name some ranges here. So let's go ahead and look at that now. And so let's go ahead and name this product range. And so we'll click on this formulas and then name manager, and we can define a name here, for example. So we call this product. And then let's go ahead and do this country as well. It's automatically picking up the name here from the title. And then finally, let's do sales. So we can name as many of these as we need to. And then over here, we can do our SUMIFs like normal, except now we can actually just take our sales and use that name here. And you can see that the sales column just highlighted. And then what we can do, where product equals to this one. And so you can see now that works the same. But instead of defining these ranges with a cell reference, we're using that named range. And then for our final one, we can do both options. And so we'll do pretty much the same thing here. We're going to do this, SUMIFs, and then sales. Product is H23 or 27 here. And then country is I27. Close that out. And then there's our final total for foldable smartphone in the UK. And again, just like we did before, we can switch the country or the product and see that total update. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out the coefficient add-on. It allows you to pull live data from your various data sources into Microsoft Excel. And then when you pull these reports and numbers with SUMIFs, then you'll be pulling it from your live data and be able to see that automatically.